Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we are going to learn about the mechanism of respiration. Mechanism of respiration mean that how the inhalation and exhalation of air take place, how the inspiration and expiration take place through lungs. The mechanism of respiration follows two phases, that is inspiration and expiration, and the whole mechanism is carried out with the help of five organs or five objects, and those are first of all lungs, pleura, ribs, diaphragm, and intercostal muscles. The mechanism of respiration follows the Boyle's law. The Boyle's law states that volume of gas is inversely proportional to the pressure. Um, if we increase the volume of gas, the pressure of the gas will be decreased. If we decrease the volume of gas, the pressure of gas will be increased. For example, let's suppose I'll focus on this diagram and these two diagram. In this diagram, the piston, the volume, you can see the volume of gas. The volume of gas is high. The piston goes up. As the piston goes up, the volume of gas, the volume of air, or the volume of this gas become high. When the volume of this gas become high, the pressure become low. The pressure is 1 atm or 1 atmospheric pressure. Now if we decrease the volume, the pressure goes high. The pressure goes to 2 atm. You can see over here, if the pressure is if the volume is decreased, the pressure is increased. And same is the case with the pressure. If we increase the pressure, the volume will be decreased. If we decrease the pressure, the volume will be increased. So the this Boyle's law can be applied on the expiration and expiration. When the volume when the volume of gas inside the lungs become high, the pressure become low, so the inhalation take place. And when the volume of gas inside the lungs become low, the pressure become high, so the exhalation take place or the expiration take place. We are going to learn about this in the next slides. Now the ribs and intercostal muscles. We know that there are 12 pair of ribs in a human being, which have a key role in inspiration and expiration. And the ribs contain two types of muscles. The ribs are connected with two types of muscles. Those are the internal intercostal muscles and external intercostal muscle. These are external intercostal muscles and these are internal intercostal muscle. Both of these muscles are responsible for inhalation and exhalation. But you should be clear over here that the external intercostal muscle, the contraction of this muscle, the external intercostal muscle, contraction of this muscle leads to the inspiration, leads to the inhalation, and the contraction of this muscle leads to the expiration or exhalation. We are going to learn about in the next slide. You will be clear. And now the external intercostal muscle are responsible for inhalation of air or the inspiration of air, and the internal intercostal muscle are responsible for exhalation or expiration of air. 25% of ventilation or 25% of exchange of gases take place with the help of these intercostal muscle. In these intercostal muscle, you should focus on this diagram. That in this diagram represent the external intercostal muscle. These are external intercostal muscle in between the ribs, and these are internal intercostal muscle in between the ribs. But the external intercostal muscle are concentrated upward. You can see over here that these are concentrated upward, and these are connected with the spinal cord, with the vertebral column. You can see that these are connected with the vertebral column also, and these are concentrated upward. These are not over here and in this area with the sternum. These are not connected with the sternum. These are not connected with the sternum, and these are connected mm, with the vertebral column. These are concentrated upward, and these are internal intercostal muscle. These are connected with the sternum, and these are concentrated downward. These are not connected with the vertebral columm. And you should also be clear when the external intercostal muscle contract. These these push the ribs upward. These push the ribs upward. And when the ribs are pushed upward, the diameter of the rib cage become high. The diameter of rib cage become high, and these push the rib cage downward. These push the rib cage downward, and when the rib cage is pushed downward by the internal intercostal muscle, the diameter of the rib cage become small. So the exhalation take place when the diameter of the rib cage become large due to pushing of the rib cage upward by by the external intercostal muscle. The inhalation take place, and when the internal intercostal muscles are contracted, and these push this rib cage downward, the diameter of the whole rib cage becomes small, and this push the gas out of the lungs, and this leads to the exhalation or expiration of air. Now the role of diaphragm. What is the role of diaphragm? You can see that the diaphragm has a very important role in the expiration and inspiration of air. You can see over here that this is the diaphragm, and this is made up of muscles, and the contraction and relaxation of this diaphragm leads to 75% of ventilation. 75% of exchange of gases take place with the help of this diaphragm, and 25% take place with the help of intercostal muscle. So it means that the diaphragm is very much important in the mechanism of respiration. So how it take place: when the diaphragm become relaxed, this is in dome shape. When this is in dome shape, this become relaxed, and this leads to the expiration of air. And when it become flattened, this get contracted. When this diaphragm get contracted, it get flattened. By the contraction of this diaphragm, it get flattened. It do not remain in the dome shape. When it is in dome shape, it is in relaxed form, and when it is in relaxed form, it leads to the expiration of air. And when this diaphragm become contracted, this is then flattened, and this leads to the inspiration of air. This leads to the inspiration of air. But you should be clear that the intercostal muscles are responsible for 25% of respiration, and 75% respiration or ventilation take place with the help of this diaphragm. So diaphragm, the contraction of diaphragm, the contraction and relaxation of diaphragm have a very important role in the respiration. This diagram is very important one. You have gone through the first slide that I have mentioned, that the pleura is also having a role in the inspiration and expiration. In this slide, pleura, this is pleura, this is also having a role. So over here in this slide, you can see this is the rib cage, this is the diaphragm, and after the diaphragm, this blue color represent the parietal pleura, while the green color represent the visceral pleura. So pleura is having two layers. One is the parietal pleura, which is the outer layer, and the other is the visceral pleura, which is the inner layer, and both of these combine together to make pleura. And in between them is a cavity that is called pleural space. And that pleural space have a fluid that is called pleural fluid, and that pleural fluid is around about 10 to 20 ml in volume. This pleural space contain 10 to 20 ml of pleural fluid that is having just like the same composition, just like the plasma, but just like the serum, but this is a bit changed than the serum. So this is the pleural space, and the pleural space is having very important role in the respiration. That the whole pleura is having very important role because the parietal pleura is connected with the rib cage. The parietal pleura is connected with the rib cage, and the visceral pleura is connected with the lungs. So when this rib cage get relaxed, when this rib cage, when the diameter of this rib cage become high, and when this diaphragm goes downward, it becomes flattened. What will happen? This pleura, this parietal pleura will also goes downward. This parietal pleura will also goes on the lateral side with the rib cage. So this parietal pleura will push this visceral pleura with it also. So this over here down on lower side, on the lateral side and upper side, the parietal pleura will push the uh, actually parietal pleura is attached with the visceral pleura, so it will also push the visceral pleura to the lateral side and downward, and this will lead to the extension of these lungs. So why this how this parietal pleura push this downward? If we will have to focus on this example. If we have two slides, the glass slide which is put on the microscope on which the specimen is put. So if we put two slides together, and we can easily separate those two slides, but if we put some fluid in between these two slides, what will happen? We cannot detach, we cannot separate these two slides, because there is no air in between these two slides. So over here there is no air. If if there is a drop of water inside in between them, so there is no air then. If there is no air though, it is surrounded by very high atmospheric pressure on this side and this side, so you cannot separate. You can slide these two slides, you can slide these two slides upon each other, but you cannot separate these vertically. You cannot separate these from each other. Why? Because there is no air in between them. But if you give a blow in between these two slides, these will be separated very easily, because the air will be entrapped over here. If a small amount of air is entrapped over here, then this is very easy to separate these two slides. But if there is no air, there is fluid, so cannot be separated. So same is the case with this pleura. The pleura is having this pleural space, and this space contain 10 to 20 ml of water. So this is the mechanism why this contain water, to connect these two pleura with each other, to decrease the pressure in between them. When these two are connected with each other with the help of small volume of pleural fluid, so there will be no air in between them. But if a small amount of air comes over here, that is a pathological condition, and that is called pneumothorax. That is called pneumothorax, and in that condition you cannot just inspire air. You cannot inspire air. This is very difficult to inspire air. You can expire air, but you cannot inspire air, because when this goes laterally, this rib cage goes laterally, pleura, parietal pleura also goes laterally, but this is not attached with this one, and this cannot goes laterally with this one, because there is air. But the presence of air in between these two layers is a pathological condition that is called pneumothorax. And if there is no air in between, this is a normal physiological condition. So there will be 20 ml or 10 to 20 ml of fluid, and that is very important for the inhalation and exhalation. Now focus on this diagram, how the alveoli is filled and emptied. When this diaphragm gets dome shaped, and when this intercostal muscle also get relaxed, what will happen when the diameter of this rib cage become high, and when this get flattened, what will happen? the diaphragm get flattened, the external intercostal muscle contract, the internal intercostal muscle relax, the pressure inside the lungs will be decreased. So what will happen? The alveoli will get filled. Focus on this diagram now. For example, this is alveoli, and this is having a small volume of residual air. This is having a small volume of air that's called residual volume. But if you consider this as a diaphragm, and if we push this diaphragm downward, if we push this diaphragm downward, what will happen? The pressure inside the hair will be decreased, and this will push this balloon inside. What will happen? This balloon will be filled. This balloon will be filled. So this is a candid example of filling up alveoli, that happens in the mechanism of respiration. So the whole mechanism of respiration involves the contraction and relaxation of intercostal muscles, the contraction and relaxation of the diaphragm, the contraction and relaxation of the lungs as well as the pleura. So all of these are responsible for the mechanism of respiration, for the inhalation and exhalation of air. And the mechanism of respiration, we have already told that the mechanism of respiration follows five important organs, and these are the lungs, pleura, rib cage, diaphragm, intercostal muscles. So in this diagram, you can see that in this diagram you can see that this is the rib cage, the outermost. This is the rib cage. This is the sternum with which the rib cage is connected frontally or ventrally, and this rib cage is connected dorsally with the vertebral column. I have already told that. In between these rib cage, you can see that these are intercostal muscles, but the intercostal muscles are of two types. These are internal intercostal muscles and external intercostal muscles. I have already told you that, for example, this is a rib. This is a rib. Inside these ribs, the formation of blood take place also, because there is large amount of bone marrow over here. So this is outermost is the external intercostal muscle. The inner is the internal intercostal muscle. Then this rib cage is connected directly with the help of fibrous tissue with the parietal pleura. Parietal pleura is also made up of fibrous tissue. So this is connected with the parietal pleura. After the parietal pleura, you can see over here, this is the space, and this space represent the parietal this space represent the pleural space. And after the pleural space, inside the pleural space, there is a pleural fluid that is 10 to 20 ml in the volume. After the pleural space, there is the visceral pleura, and the visceral pleura is the this actually gave boundary to the alveoli. This gave boundary to the lungs. So this is the innermost layer of the pleura, which surround the lungs. And when this intercostal muscle, when the external intercostal muscle is relaxed, is contracted, when the external intercostal muscle is contracted, the space between two ribs become high. When the space between two ribs become high, what will happen? The diameter of this rib cage will be increased. The diameter of this rib cage will be increased, and what will happen when the diameter of this rib cage will be increased? This also push this parietal pleura with itself, because this is connected with this one. So just like the example of glass slides, this parietal pleura also take this visceral pleura with it. And when this take this visceral pleura with the what will happen? It will increase the diameter of this lung. And when the diameter of this lung is increased, what will happen? The alveoli inside this lung will become relaxed. What will happen? The diameter of alveoli become high. The pressure inside the the alveoli will become very low. When the pressure inside the alveoli become low, what will happen? The pressure outside the body is very high, so the air will get rushed inside the lungs. And I have also told that a very important role is for the diaphragm. That diaphragm is very important for the inhalation and exhalation. Now you can see over here that this is dome shape. When this diaphragm get downward, when this diaphragm get downward, what will happen? The it will get flattened, and it will increase the volume of lungs, and it will decrease the pressure inside the lungs. When the pressure inside the lung is decreased, the inhalation will take place, and when the pressure inside the lung get increased, the exhalation will take place. You should be quite clear about this phenomena, that when the pressure inside the lungs or inside the alveoli become high, what will happen? The exhalation will take place, and when the pressure inside the lungs become low, the inhalation will take place. This is very important for your for the memorizing of mechanism of respiration. So all of these are responsible uh, for the mechanism of respiration.